Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. I am your host, Jonathan, and today we have the honor of having Eric Rhodes, the trash art historian, in the house. We're going to be talking about trash art. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things in the NFT space and the blockchain space. I'm so excited to have him as a guest. Let's get right into it. If you don't know Eric, he created Unofficial Punks. He also, as I said, is part of the trash art movement, and we are going to get into what that actually means. So, hey, Eric, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Good to see you, Jonathan.
Thank you, thank you. Everybody should understand that Eric and I live fairly close, so we do see each other quite often. We
We
are
do, yeah.
we are sushi brothers.
We are. This is
But
true.
this is actually going to be the first time in all of our conversations and all of our meetings. This is actually the first time that we're going to be talking about the art that you create and
Yep.
the movement that you're involved in. So I'm really excited for this. So tell us a little bit about, first of all, you got your start in NFT. In blockchain, really, in 2018. Prior to that, you were working for Twitter. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I was on the global support customer experience team, the team that handles like all of the requests that you would send in for abuse or shit like beheadings and things like that. That would all go through this whole team that I was on, and I was brought in to work on some change management to bring basically the service design to their service to change the way that they interacted with customers. That was in 2018.
So that sounds like it's more business oriented than actually art oriented.
Yeah, it's design oriented, right? Um, so I got my career started in website design and development, and then it's evolved since, but it was always in the design realm. So designing customer experiences, designing hardware experiences, designing user interfaces, but there was an evolution. It went from like like graphic design to web design to user experience design to customer service design to customer experience design. There was a whole evolution. But so
Interesting.
taking those principles of user experience design and bringing them into sort of the macro world of what a service would look like at scale across the whole entire product ecosystem at, say, Twitter or Google.
How long were you there for?
At Twitter, 18 months, no, 2 years, 2 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
wow. Okay,
Mhm.
so in a very short amount of time, you kind of gained this, ramp up skill. That's amazing.
Yeah. I had really great mentors at Google when I was working at Google. And then the guy, this dude, Donald Hicks, he brought me in at Twitter, um, and was just really instrumental in helping me grow in the tech space. I spent 10 years in book publishing before that. So my experience is quite varied. I was working in the tech side of book publishing, but it's a notoriously slow to grow and adopt technology space.
Interesting.
And then I jumped to like Google and Twitter, and I was working at this sort of innovation arm at Twitter called ATAP, Advanced Technologies and Product Projects.
Oh wow.
And they were the DARPA group within Google.
Oh, that's super cool. Oh, that's amazing. Oh wow.
Yeah, I worked on a lot of products that never saw the light of day.
Yeah. Well, that's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, no, that was their intention. It wasn't to make a product that was financially viable. It was to push the boundaries in product development. And then
Interesting.
if something came out of that, they would adopt it to to Nest or their pre-existing product hardware products.
Was it a fun place to work? Was it a happy place?
Yeah, totally. It was a skunk works. It was a place where you got to experiment and try new ideas. So yeah, it was exactly where I wanted to be. And then when I went to Twitter, is the exact opposite.
Well, wait. Oh, so I'm sorry. So wait. So at you're saying at Google it was a fun place to work,
Yeah, oh yeah, Google was a great place. Yeah.
but then when you went to Twitter, it was a nightmare.
Completely different mindset. right?
Oh,
They're revenue based, revenue driven, and my ADD didn't really work with the way
interesting.
that they wanted to do things. So it's
Right.
fine. I found my way out of it.
Did Twitter help you understand where and what was happening in the blockchain space? Because getting into
No.
2018, okay, so how did you get into the space?
Yeah, so I totally by happenstance, sort of. So I've been aware of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies since 2013. Um, as somebody who is interested in tech in general, it was prudent of me to continue to learn about what are these incoming technologies, right? So it was just sort of like I have a natural want to learn new things. And because of that, I was aware of it. And then around 2017, I felt comfortable enough with understanding what blockchain was to invest in Bitcoin, invest in Ethereum. And at that point, so you got to figure, I didn't start working in tech until 2015.
Okay.
So I wasn't around people who were like actively investing in technology. And then when I got around people who were actively investing in technology, and you're learning and talking and hanging out with them, your knowledge speeds up. And
Yeah.
so I got ramped up pretty quickly on what I wanted to invest in. And then, so that's sort of like my introduction to blockchain. And then after that, uh, in 2018, I happened to be on Twitter. I had been in sort of involved in the Chainlink community a little bit. I was a Link Marine,
Uh-huh.
um, pre-mainnet kind of stuff. Just throwing around memes and things of that nature, and just having fun with a group of people. And I typed in, because I've been an artist my entire life, but it was always as a hobby.
Mm.
And I just typed in, like, I wanted to see what people were doing with art around crypto. So I literally typed in crypto space art into Twitter, and I fell down this giant rabbit hole, and I haven't left. And I've just been falling and falling and falling, and it's been getting greater and greater and greater.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'll tell you, just, being your friend and kind of going to lunches and just chatting about life, I didn't really understand the scope of your artwork, that it really goes from the trash art and the unofficial punks and the
Mhm.
the second realm stuff. It's extensive and it's expansive. The amount of artwork that you've produced over the last, I guess, 3 or 4 years is incredible, and it's diverse. We're going to take a little look at that
Yeah.
pretty soon, but
So
it really
it's
is.
been mostly over the last 3 years, and my Genesis mint was on Super Rare in July of 2019, but I got accepted onto the platform in April of 2019 after sort of watching the space for 6 months. So I discovered this NFT world that was just crypto art at the time. Like, I didn't even know what NFT meant. I had no idea what non-fungible token was. Um, I didn't know the difference between fungible and non-fungible. I knew it was a blockchain token, right? But you learn really quickly once you're sort of in the world. And then, but I spent 6 months just watching, observing, and seeing people like Coldy and Josie and Rob Ness and Matt Cain and Trevor Jones, all these really early, and the Pepe crew. Not it took me 2 years after that to learn why Pepe was so important. Like, I was not steeped at all into meme culture. I came from book world and traditional tech world in Silicon Valley, but at this point, it's sort of like you're so mainstream at Twitter. It's you're not really thinking about advancing technology, is sort of just thinking about making revenue. But anyway, I started to sort of learn in this world, and then finally I got the confidence, really, to put my art out there. I had never practiced in public. I call it practicing in public now, but for a long time my art was sort of like this thing I did on the side for me. I didn't make any money, I didn't have clients, it wasn't like that. I applied a super rare. I'm 99% sure the only reason I got in is because I was an employee at Twitter, and that looked good. But I used it to my advantage, so
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
And there was no, I didn't have to submit a video. The team was really small. The community, the active community in this, maybe 2,000 people, maybe. Right, very small.
Right.
And so it was like this little community, and but I waited. I got accepted in April, and I waited all the way till June to mint, because I still didn't know what minting was. I was like,
Right.
what does it mean putting stuff on the blockchain? Like, I had no fucking clue.
Yeah.
Right. And I end up
There's
learning on the job.
There's definitely a 6-month ramp up, right? So,
Easily.
as soon as Beeple sold that 69 million, I turned my head, moved away from the physical artwork, focused on the NFTs, and really spent the next 6 months learning, not producing anything, not, working with anyone, not doing anything, just learning and learning and learning. I would literally get up 5:30 in the morning and start watching YouTube videos and just learning about what everything is, getting onto Twitter, following the right people, all that stuff. Right now, especially like during the tail end of the boom, this last kind of cycle that we've had in a bull market prior to the bear market that we're in now, so many people would just jump on, non-educated, not understanding what really was going on, and just lose all of their money. And it's just, you need to, I mean, those are kind of the gamblers, right? We always talk about like the NFT gamble. But if you're not gambling and you're doing things educatedly, which isn't the word, but you're kind of understanding where everything is. Now, of course, I mean, that meant that I, missed the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and I missed the Crypto Kitties, and I missed the, punks and all that. But, I bought the stuff that I liked, right? I'm happy with the investments that I've made. I sold one piece finally that was just a duplicate of something that I had with somebody else's event, somebody else's project. And that really is the limit. Everything to me is art. So I'm going to hold on to it for as long as I possibly can, because it's going to go up in a frame, and it's going to, maybe I'll resell it in a gallery or something like that, and that kind of stuff. But let's get into kind of like what happened with trash art, because my understanding in my research is that, Robness kind of was the center impact, right? He got a
catalyst. Yeah.
He got a suspension from Super Rare in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
His work was called 64 Gallon Totter, and it was a modified, reimagined stock image pulled from the Home Depot website.
It's appropriation art, yeah.
Well, let's talk about appropriation art, because legally, as an artist, and I have a degree in art, you are allowed to change any image 10%, and it is then redefined as a new image, right? If you took the Mona Lisa and you put a mustache on the Mona Lisa, that technically, if you brought it in front of a court of law, is a different Mona Lisa than the one that's at the Louvre.
Well, yeah, but the Mona Lisa is basically CCO now.
CCO is
Creative Commons Zero, so basically in the public domain.
Right.
Because its copyright is passed.
Right. But anything, the legal form of art is changing it by 10%. And I looked at the Robness NFT, and that was changed way more. There was no indication
100%.
that it was a Home Depot piece of garbage trash bin. I don't even know. I guess in England maybe they call it a garbage bin, a totter. Is that why the word totter is used?
The toter is, or totter. I don't know how you say it, but I've been saying it toter, but it's the brand name of the garbage bin company, and the company is Toter LLC is the company who created that. It's sort of like if Rubbermaid had a wheelie bin, that looked similar to it.
Right.
It would be the Rubbermaid wheelie bin.
Okay. Or Xerox making a machine is called a Xerox. It's a Xerox machine.
Right. Exactly. So there is some like There is some, what do they call it? Genericide here. And
Okay.
so basically, Xerox no longer can claim copyright because
Right.
it's in the. A lot of people have been using Xerox to
Right.
make copies for a long time. It's in
Yes.
the nomenclature. It's out there in the world.
Yes.
There's something called genericide, as my buddy Colin would say. So there might be a claim for toter, as people use toter for garbage cans.
Right.
That it is genericide, but we're sort of jumping ahead to something that's happening today. What I'd like to do is give a little context about Robness and the toter
Yes.
and how all that happened.
Yeah,
And I
please.
think it's important to know, before you were talking about sort of people who are losing money. When we came into the space, we were getting excited about $5 sales. And I'll never forget, Robness made the highest purchase on Super Rare all time at one point. It was for $1,000.
Wow.
Right? Like, we're not, and this is like, I think it was in 2020 when he did that. So it had been 2 years where it wasn't about making money. It was sort of just about proving at scale that art on the blockchain can be a thing.
Right.
And we did that, and then it became about money after people and all that kind of good stuff. Hey, all the power to all the artists that could do that. I've made great money in this space. But in the beginning, it wasn't about that. In the beginning, it was about this ethos of decentralization, this ethos of breaking away from the traditional art world, which is typically gate kept by galleries, and the market itself is manipulated, right? So we were challenging all of these concepts as not just trash artists. Trash art didn't exist yet. It was all of crypto art was challenging these concepts. But as more money comes in,
Right.
and more investors come in, and people are concerned about their bags, and at the time, Super Rare was considered a premier, or is considered one of the premier platforms. There were whales as collectors that were influencing the leadership by threatening to pull their money if they didn't pull art off the platform and artists off the platform that they didn't think their art was devaluing the art that they had already invested in. That's why Robness and Max Osiris were ultimately pulled off. And it was the catalyst is Robness and Max, because these two were sort of like, I guess you can consider it like Warhol and Basquiat, right? Like, they're two people who are challenging the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
They're working as a team, or compatriots, or together, and these whales just didn't like the kind of work that they were minting, and they threatened the leadership team, John Crane and Zach and everybody at Super Rare, to pull their money and go someplace else. And I had been told privately, and then made it public, that their customer is the collector, not the artist. Artists are easy to come by, is what I was told. And so we have to listen to our collectors. And ultimately, they made the excuse that it was a copyright protected image, and that was the reason that they were kicking Robness off. For Max, it was a similar reason, but I think it was he was remixing, and at the time, remixing was like a no-no. Right? Like, remix culture is such a part of NFTs now. You see all the derivative. Remix culture in 2019 did not exist. In 2020 did not exist. In fact, you were denigrated if you remixed another artwork.
Interesting.
Which is where, like, the core of trash art begins.
Yeah.
Because there's
now we have Bored Ape Yacht Club, and we have
cake apes, and flipped mutant alien apes, and who the fuck knows. It's derivatives galore.
So that could have never happened on a Super Rare. That happened on OpenSea because they really don't have the capacity, due to the fact that they don't have the number of employees that they need, because they haven't hired the right number of people to kind of monitor the art and the projects that are going up on OpenSea. Anyone could put up anything on OpenSea, and until a group of people actually yell about it, OpenSea isn't going to do anything about it.
Well, yeah, and you know, at the time it was a gated, well, it still is a gated platform. So
Super
there
rare.
was super rare. And
Right.
so there was a very small, like that was how they controlled what was minted on their platform.
Do you think that they lost out during the bull run because they weren't they did very well during the bull run?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, okay.
Yeah, and artists on that platform did very well. It's still considered a premier, you know, before Nifty Gateway came around, it was the premier platform. You
Interesting.
know, and it's where X copy, where you get all the good X copy stuff. It's where you get all the good Matt Cain stuff and Trevor Jones, you know.
That would really require you to be somewhere in the art, the fine art NFT world, right? Not the PFP and project, utility and all this stuff, right? You're purely buying artwork on
And
Super.
none of that existed in 2020, and that's where trash art began, right? Trash art, and really one of one art was the market, except for CryptoPunks and Crypto Skulls and a couple of other projects. The PFP renaissance didn't happen until after after January of 2021.
You've been quoted as saying the trash art movement began with a conversation about what defines art, the role of curation on chain, and the
Mhm.
role technology plays in the creation of art.
Mhm.
Talk to
Yeah.
me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, first, I think, you know, I basically, what I believe is that trash art sort of plants a flag in between, in the middle of the question of what is and what isn't art,
Okay.
and basically says you don't get to define what art is, right? So trash art has become a philosophy of individual creativity, where this idea that, someone out there gets to tell you that your art is or isn't good, or is art or doesn't belong on this platform, is what decentralization is all about. This idea of individual sovereignty, individual creativity, individual ownership over your brand. At the time in 2020, there were people attempting to control what they considered to be good art and trash art. The movement is born out of that. So in 2020, Robness got kicked off, Max Osiris got kicked off of Super, and I got kicked off later in the year in Super Rare, all for remixing artwork.
Was your remix the Unofficial Punks?
No, no, no. My remix never made it to the platform because I
Oh.
threatened to remix one of their popular artists, Hackatow. The leadership team, specifically John Crane, saw my tweet, and the next morning I received an email saying that I was removed from Super Rare.
So based on the threat, just the
Right.
tweet, you were
Yes,
removed from Super Rare.
100%. Basically, from February 2020 to September of 2020, there grew this movement of artists in support of Rob Ness and Max, and I was one of those. And um, we began to move everything over to Rarible. At the time, Rarible wasn't considered a great place to mint art. A lot of scammy stuff was there, and we moved an entire culture of artists and onboarded an entire culture of artists onto that platform, making it viable enough that people started coming to Rarible. Popular artists started coming to Rarible because they saw the viability of the marketplace itself.
Wow.
And Rarible was at the time, an open marketplace for artists, and it still is open, but OpenSea was a little bit harder to use than Rarible at the time. So we sort of shifted to Rarible, and that's so the culture of trash art began to build there, and we began to hang out together online, you know. And don't forget, this is mid-pandemic, right? So a lot of us are in front of our computers. I'm having phone calls. I'm having Zoom calls with people I've never met before that are now some of my closest friends, right?
Yeah.
um, and we sort of developed this culture, this subculture, this punk art, this punk rock art group. It doesn't have a leader. It's amorphous, and it evolves. And what began as sort of this ownership of the term trash art, because what happened was at the time in 2020, somebody called where they were calling our artwork trash. And just like the Impressionists, we decided we're going to own the word, because impressionism was used to denigrate the Impressionists in a by a popular critic at the time. um, And same thing for us. A well-known influencer you called our work trash art on public, on Twitter, and we owned it. We said, you're going to call our work trash art, we're going to be trash artists. And the memes of the toter started growing, and trash art sort of evolved into sort of three prongs. You had the meme, you had the aesthetic, the use of the Photoshop, and photo mosh and glitching and low effort art, right? That's sort of the aesthetic of it. And then there was the movement itself, which was the focus on decentralization of art and the Web3 ethos and individual sovereignty, and trying to get artists to consider creating their own contracts and not relying on platforms to control what art we can put on the platform, or put out there. So for many years, that was sort of the three prongs. And then recently it's sort of come back to the old individual, like in philosophy of individual creativity. I always think of the double diamond in design, where it expands and then contracts and then it expands again as we learn more. We're sort of in the contraction phase of it all, where more people are coming into the space, and the toter meme is really driving a lot of the discussion. But what's important too is we're pushing the boundaries of copyright and IP. We're pushing the boundaries of what gatekeeping looks like. We're challenging the status quo that the traditional art world has set for us for a long time. Market pricing, influence, who gets to make money, who doesn't, right? The movement's growing again, and it's growing on Tezos, which is really beautiful. There's an entire culture of, because one of the things that is really difficult about making art on Ethereum today is gas price can be high. The cost of entry is high. When I started in 18 and 19, there were times I was minting for 0.0001 cent.
Yeah.
Right. Gas was super low. So now Tezos offers the opportunity to do that. And what happens is when your cost of entry is so low, experimentation continues to sort of grow at a rapid rate. And so the kind of experimentation we were doing in the early days of trash art, are happening again on Tezos.
Oh, wow.
And it's really beautiful to see. Yeah, if anybody wants to see what's happening just follow hashtag Tez, TEZ trash, and you'll see all of that, all of the great stuff that's going on there.
And let's talk about this for a second, because we're looking at the People's Potatoes, the Wash Trading Rary, and the Weeds.
Yeah.
What should we know about these pieces? I mean, the People's Potato, you and I have talked a little bit about what that is.
Yeah. So the People's Potato is a fungible, non-fungible token.
A fungible, non-fungible token.
Yeah, I minted 1 billion of them. So basically, I created a pseudocurrency via an NFT image.
And this is, people can just pick this up. Is this available for people?
Yeah, it's available. Yeah, but the whole idea behind it was to mint something that would always be cheap, and it was made in the vein of low effort trash art. The image itself is one click photo moshed.
What does that mean? One click photo moshed.
So photo mosh is a software. Think of it as a synthesizer for your images, and it lets you do all kinds of crazy effects to images. You can also automate it by hitting the mosh button, and it will randomize from their list of features. And I did that with this with one click and just minted it.
And here we have it. There are 718 owners. There is, what is that, 1 million or 100 million?
Yeah, 1 billion.
1 billion. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, and this particular piece was shortlisted for the most innovative NFT in 2020 by NFT Awards. And it eventually won the People's Choice Award.
I want to talk about the Unofficial Punks.
The Unofficial Punks is directly related to my experience in trash art, specifically remix culture and appropriation art.
It looks like a punks style piece.
It's 100% borrowed. It's an homage, derivative project of the CryptoPunks. It's 24 by 24 pixels. It's built on top of pre-existing punk visuals. Sometimes I created new stuff, but ultimately the images are derivative of CryptoPunks. This all happened organically. So you see that little guy in the middle that I'm wearing the hat right here.
Uh-huh.
I created this piece because at the time I did not own a punk. I'd missed out on buying punks. I thought punks were not cool. I didn't understand. I was so when I started in this space, I was so caught up in the art of it all,
Hmm.
and I didn't understand the community aspect of like owning a collectible that other people and then connecting socially with other people who also own those collectibles. I was so focused on just trying to be an artist in the space that wasn't focused on the collectible aspects of it all. And so I missed on CryptoPunks, and then there were a couple of $1 million sales, and the floor had jumped tremendously, and so I wanted my own punk, and so I created my own punk. And I was inspired by money by a lot of money. He's no longer with us, but he's one of the earliest innovators in the crypto art space. You could look him up. Money Alata is his Twitter handle. And so he created his own version of a CryptoPunk using his aesthetic, and I was inspired by that to create mine. And then I just shared it. And I think because of the people that I hung around in the space, the people who were naturally inclined and interested in meme culture, interested in remixing, interested in appropriation art, that one tweet basically inspired an entire culture and an entire alt punk movement because of this project right here. I think I did some I collected data on this at the time. So this is, and for context, for people who don't know, this is all before apes. Before apes, there were very few PFP projects that people were putting in their profile pictures. Punks was one of them. Crypto Skulls wasn't really there yet. I think some people were using the kitties, whatever and the Axie Infinities and things of that nature. Oh, and Avastars, right?
Okay.
So maybe there was some, but it wasn't like major. It wasn't, the idea of the PFP wasn't like totally culturally significant in NFTs quite yet.
Right. Right.
And then Unofficial Punks and ultimately alt punks and the entire community that was born out of this, which included like 160 we call those subgenres, but other artists that were creating other punk inspired derivatives.
Mm-hmm.
It became a social and cultural movement of people experimenting with the punk aesthetic, the idea of remix culture being reaccepted again in the art experience. And I call it remix because I think it's more akin to sort of how you remix and sample things in rap music and today's pop music too. That's widely known and accepted in sort of the music world. Artists at the time in NFT space and the collectors themselves were completely against remixing. They found, especially punk owners, original CryptoPunk owners, found our remixes offensive, tried to get them removed. Once again, we're battling uphill on the same principles we were battling with Super Rare, right? Except we're battling against a much broader community of influencers now, the CryptoPunks. The saving grace here was I had some support from the CryptoPunks team, John and Matt.
Oh wow.
They gave the okay for my project.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So that's how it stays up and isn't pulled down and
Yeah, for a couple, and why it's also checkmarked. I was grandfathered in on OpenSea. Today, OpenSea has a internal policy where a derivative project cannot receive a checkmark.
oh.
But they have something called a safe list. So any new project, if you've ever bought anything on OpenSea, you'll see the meter, and it's like, this is trusted or not trusted. It
Right.
wants you to be aware that you may be purchasing a fraudulent something.
Right.
Or so what they did was they added this extra layer of friction, and then when your project becomes popular, they remove that layer of friction, and that's how they get you on the safe list, but you can't receive a blue check mark. I am one of the few derivative projects out there at Unofficial Punks that has a check mark because I was grandfathered in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. That puts so much value to that whole project. That's incredible.
It does. Yeah. And really to the whole community. There's like there's an entire community of alt punks that exist today, like death punks. If we look at fast food punks, all of these widely accepted derivatives, in my opinion, would not exist today had it not had the Unofficial Punks not created this sort of excitement. So, and this again, I keep having, I want to repeat this. It was 2 months before apes even hit the market. Apes shifted the paradigm,
Right.
100%,
Right.
no doubt,
Right.
absolutely. But the catalyst for that shift and getting people interested in and the idea of the remix happened in the alt punk movement in those 2 months between February and April before apes dropped. I will take this to my grave, 100% believe the Unofficial Punks are 100% responsible for that. But it gets overshadowed, unfortunately, it gets overshadowed because of how innovative the apes were, you know, and I'm okay with that, you know, because the people who know, if you know, you know,
Right.
and the people who know, and that's fine with me. But apes absolutely shifted the paradigm. And another project I missed out on because I was like, the art is crap. Not that the art is crap, but I was just like, it's the same thing. Oh, ape. You know, I just didn't get it. I didn't get being part of, you know.
And is the Unofficial Punks, are they hand drawn or are they computer generated?
No, I hand created them.
That's amazing.
Each and every 100. There's 100 of them, and I went down to the pixel level and customized each one, and then you blow it up. I'm not a 10,000 PFP. Didn't have millions of dollars to create a community with, so I had to, you know, just work on creating my smaller community through art. And I think that's one of the challenges that artists have is when you're competing against big brands like Bored Apes, and also bigger brands as artists like Ferocious or X Copy, who have very distinct styles. It could be a challenge. What NFTs have done isn't changed the top of the market, though I think that that's what people wanted to happen. I think the top of the market still acts like the traditional art world. There are people who can influence who are the popular artists, all that kind of, you know, what the market values of these artists are. Where if you buy it at a certain gallery, it's worth more. But in my opinion, it did raise the floor significantly.
Right.
So more artists can make a living, even as a hobby, than ever before in a community and compete in the same marketplace as the big boys.
Right. And also, you know, we have to remember that this is such new technology. You know, even you being involved in 2018, and here we are in 2022, you know, that's not even a 10-year art span, right?
Not even close.
Art spans are really, you know, over, you know, decades, right? You look at all these movements, they take, you know, 10 years, you know, look, they take 10 years just to get into the Whitney, right? So let's see when a Bored Ape yacht, I mean, I understand that they're sold at Christie's and they're sold at Sotheby's. There's a difference between being sold at an auction house and being included in the Whitney Biennial, right? Let me see when the Bored Ape Yacht Club gets into the Whitney Biennial, then we'll have a conversation about the art.
Yeah, and you know, I think because they're so culturally significant, them and the CryptoPunks, I think they will at some point. It's
you know how I feel about this. I mean,
I know.
I support Ryder Ripps. I think what he's doing, regardless of, you know, how the lawsuit is going to end up, I think that he's doing the right thing because there are very many questionable elements in the Bored Ape Yacht Club 10,000. And I think that, you know, the further he digs, the more he digs into this, and the more he reveals what he's digging into, the more that it really becomes extremely questionable. And I understand he's total hype, and he has a personality, and it's part of the personality and the way that
he has a very abrasive personality.
Absolutely, but I understand that. But you know, you look at some of these Bored Apes, and you have to just like you know, even when they first came out, what were they? They were like, $200, $300. I didn't pick it up because I didn't like the artwork, right? But then
That's
when you
100% why I didn't pick it up.
yeah, absolutely. And it also kind of like the timing was perfect. Gary Vee was saying NFTs are going to explode and then they're going to drop off to zero. And, these are the ones that he is in his collection. And then everybody could see everything on Nansen as to who's buying and who has these huge wallets and stuff like that. But, the snake eats the tail in this situation, right? If Gary Vee is saying, Bored Ape, Bored Ape, Bored Ape, and he's the one who's buying it, then eventually, yes, his cronies will start buying Bored Ape and then make it super hot. But, marketing can only do so much in the art world, right? If we're really, that's PFPs, that's utility, that's a different segment of the market than fine art. You can't have you can't have a top fine art.
I'm one of these people who believe that the art market is all about marketing.
Absolutely. Well, yes, but only to a very fine segmented audience.
Yeah.
Right.
Certainly.
You're not going to have, if I won the lottery and I have $1 billion, if I have $647 million and walk into a gallery, they'll sell me anything I want.
Yeah.
But really that doesn't, it's the same thing with Trump, right? Trump was invited to all of these parties for his entire life in New York City, but nobody wanted to fucking talk to him. Right? You can own all the Bored Ape yachts, all the, BAYCs that you want, but, that doesn't make you any more important than you were prior to owning it. Gets you into a lot of nice parties, but that's about the extent of it.
Yeah. And,
and the downside is if, Ryder Ripps really does reveal who these guys are and what their affiliations are with white nationalists, that could be a big problem for people who are holding those apes.
It can be, but it also might be too big. At this point, it might be too big to fail.
Oh, I don't think anything is too big to fail in this world with cancel culture and everything. No, I think if the information comes out, and I think it's going to.
I saw that documentary that you suggested a while back, and I have a visceral reaction to Ryder Ripps. I don't.
Right.
I had a run-in with him. I don't personally like him.
Right.
So, and I don't hide the fact that I don't personally like him. I'm sure you don't fucking care about me either. Right. And that's okay. I would not, I'll still shake his hand, say hello, and move on and go get my drink at the bar.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He has he has a fantastic ability to get people's attention.
Yep.
No doubt about that. Yeah. And I'll never take that away from him. He knows how to grab people's attention. Right. So, for me, not owning one really makes it easy for me to ignore him and all of this.
Right. Although the impact will be felt throughout the NFT world.
Yeah, I'm sure. So one of the things you were talking about was like earlier is the difference between one-of-one art and PFPs. Right. And for a while there was no bifurcation yet. When apes came on board, it was all one-of-one art, and then CryptoPunks and Bored Apes. And then, the market started to change and shift. And as more people started to come in, more people started to go towards the PFP. And so you have all of this new collector set. What you're seeing now today is this collector set is, in my opinion, I don't want to say getting bored, but let's say that the model is the same for most of these drops, and they're looking for something interesting. And now they're coming back into one-of-one art, and they're rediscovering older artists or artists that have been around, like myself. I wouldn't call myself a top tier artist yet. I want to be on the level of an X copy. Who doesn't? I'm still going to do my shit. I'm 100% bullish on myself for the rest of my life. I think that there is a shift now where people are getting a little bit bored of all the crap that's happening in the NFT, in the PFP space, and they're coming back to one-of-one art, or coming to one-of-one art, and generative art. Oh my God, generative art is fantastic.
Yes.
Right. It's in many cases, it's so non-political that it's safe. for people to invest in.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think market's changing, and I think art is going to save it once again. And I wrote this probably like 4 months ago. Art will be, the saving grace of the NFT world once again.
Right.
And I believe that too.
Yeah, I think we spoke about this. When Brett Malinowski made the announcement that everybody who wants a PFP owns a PFP or can easily get a PFP that they feel represents them, the market's dead, right? The market's oversaturated, and that's exactly what we saw during the bull run. Was everybody and their mother had a PFP project coming out, and were lying about the utility that they were going to produce.
Utility was a great marketing term.
Oh, absolutely!
It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Roadmap.
The amazing thing about Twitter during that period of time was the speed of the marketing, the speed of this change. Yeah. I remember, talking to clients of mine, and all of a sudden this idea of utility came around. Where like the month before, like there was nobody. Like when Bored Ape Yacht Club launched, there wasn't a road. Was there a roadmap for Bored Ape Yacht Club?
Oh yeah,
there was.
They were the innovator.
Okay, right. Okay, yeah. Right. So they started the utility concept.
Well, they started the roadmap concept. Okay. Well, I think maybe other people might have, but they basically did it so well that everybody just started copying them.
Yeah. But what people don't realize, again, we're so early in the market. Having gone through the pre.coms into the .coms, like, I was trying to explain something to somebody the other day, and I said, look, when the technology was growing for the .coms, things would change yearly.
Yeah.
Now things are changing weekly, and during that bull run, what you would say daily.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. No, I know. And the technology that's being used and how it's being utilized and how the blockchain is growing, and the fact that you're all moving over to Tezos, that says a lot, because as Ethereum struggles, right? Because if I'm buying $100 piece of artwork that I now have to spend $40 on the gas, or I could buy it over on Tezos, or I could buy it over on Solana, this is the challenge. Like, when we look at history, history, they say, doesn't repeat, it rhymes, right? You look at Netscape, and to me, Ethereum, and I've said this over and over and over again, and nobody listens to me, but Ethereum is Netscape. Netscape was great at the time for what it could do, but they couldn't manage it and upgrade it fast enough. So someone else came in. Before Netscape, there was WebCrawler, and WebCrawler was huge, and Alta Vista, and all these things that Ask Jeeves for Microsoft, exactly. All of these search engines that nobody knows. If you were born in 1999, you have no idea what
Zero clue
was. You have no idea what WebCrawler was, no concept, and you think everything is run from Google. When you were born, Google was out, and that's it. And so when we look at these blockchains, and it's funny because, I've talked to people that are like, our blockchain's going to win. And I'm like, I don't think there's going to be a definitive winner. I think that there are definitely going to be losers. I think that when you're doing proof of work, those are definite losers, right? Like I look at Bitcoin and I look at Ethereum right now, and I see all of these challenges to it, the Tezos, and even the Richard Hart stuff. All of these different, look, it's easy to build a blockchain, right? Everything is open source. I can build a blockchain in a week. Just, pull down Ethereum, do another version of it, and launch it, and, have it proof of work. You have to move it over to proof of stake. But, we're so early that fine artwork is always going to be an element of blockchain sales and NFTs. Gaming is always going to be an element of the NFT market, but how it's going to be utilized is going to be completely different. Let's talk about Second Realm, because Second Realm is kind of where the Unofficial Punks came from, right?
Yeah. Second Realm was my pseudonym. I was actually anonymous for the first year or so in the space in 17, 18, when I was in the chain link world. I was at Second Realm. I was anonymous. And then I became pseudonymous. So I
Mm.
doxed myself, but I was going under the sort of like Lady Gaga, right? That's not her real name.
Right.
That's her stage name. So Second Realm was my stage name. And then it started to evolve. So I decided at some point in 2021 that I was going to begin moving away from Second Realm as my pseudonym and start showing up in the world as Eric Rhodes. I really saw it as a market advantage because a lot of people were anonymous. A lot of people are pseudonymous to protect their jobs, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I saw an opportunity here to not only embrace the confidence of being Eric again, which
Mm-hmm.
what we haven't touched on is mental health. My mental health journey, it plays a very big role in my NFT experience. It's the primary reason I got into NFTs. So I was doing art again as a way to cope with crippling anxiety and crippling depression, and also like the end of my marriage. And I was going to therapy for the first time ever in 39 years or whatever it was. Art became like a safe space again. I started practicing, but I didn't want to show it in galleries anywhere, or I didn't want to put it on Instagram where people I knew could see it. And I found this little community of like in a dark corner of the web where people were doing crypto art, where I know nobody that I know is ever going to look there and see my artwork.
Yeah.
And I get to play with some new technology. Cool.
Yeah.
Right. And so because of that, I ended up like really just the perfect storm of situations. I searched for crypto and art. I'm already doing art. Oh, look, I could put my art in this space. And I've always wanted to practice in public, which is basically like learning and growing and accepting criticism publicly by putting your work out there.
Yeah.
And you grow confidently. And so as I've grown more confident as an artist, I moved away from anonymous to pseudonymous to full on doxed Eric P. Rhodes from New Jersey, born and raised. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
that's
let's take a look at this. This is actually your kind of coming out,
it
right?
is, yeah.
Pieces of trash art proof by Second Realm, and this is some of your stuff. This is tell us about this.
Yeah, so I had a friend, one of my favorite artists in the space who's also a friend is Gary Cartledge, aka Troy Fitzpatrick. And he was commenting how we don't know who's real and who's not real in the space. Right. And so I sent him a picture of me and my driver's license in a chat to verify that this was actually me, like as a joke. And I in that moment I realized, well, I'll just dox myself publicly. And so that picture there is like this artwork is a representation of me doxing myself in that moment to him. That's the actual photo that I sent him. And the photo has been manipulated here. Right. While I didn't mind him having my driver's license, I wasn't putting my real driver's license out on the web.
Right.
You know, I am still security conscious.
Sure,
right?
sure.
I think
absolutely.
I think one of the things that I was talking about it with somebody this weekend. What is decentralization? At its core, I think decentralization is individual sovereignty. That sounds good. It's like, but what does that actually mean? And what does that actually mean is you now have to be responsible for your interactions with centralized authorities. If you're going to collect and distribute cryptocurrencies, well, now you have to be your security, your bank, you're not covered by the FDIC, all this stuff, right? So you're there. And now let's take that at a macro scale. I have to be aware of what companies I'm interfacing with, what data of mine is being put out there. That's my responsibility, and it should be our responsibility. And I think that's the thing that decentralization and individual sovereignty is attempting to teach us. Not that it should be 100% utopian decentralized, but that you need to be responsible as a human in our society today for who you interact with and where you're putting your information out there.
There are so many people that are going to be unable to do that. They lack
That's
the
okay.
education and the understanding.
And that's okay, because there are services for them.
Like exchanges?
No. I mean, like, at a society scale, there are services for these people. If you don't want to be, fiat will always, in my opinion, will always be available.
Right.
If you don't want to get involved in the crypto space, fine. You'll have your safe banks. You'll have your organizations where you can be naive and dumb to what's happening around you. But what blockchain and decentralization has done for some of us is to awaken us from the social network culture of giving away our shit for free.
The idea of the CBDCs, coming in, the government, that's what's going to basically happen, is that people that don't understand the difference between owning your own Bitcoin in your Ledger wallet or Trezor wallet, or receiving CBDCs from the federal government, they're not going to understand the difference. They're not going to understand what's lacking, what they're missing, and what they're giving up, because they're giving up so much information by getting paid with CBDC that is then tied through the government, and then they can tell you what you can and can't buy. It's a very complicated area.
I think it's the responsibility of those that do understand to have patience and teach people close to us what it actually means.
It's very hard. I'll tell you something. I get into this conversation with my family all the time. Why is nobody in my family other than me investing in crypto? Oh, because they're waiting for federal regulation. Well,
there's a fear, right?
It's a fear, right? Yeah. And it's understandable. Look, people have lost millions, right?
Sure.
People have lost,
people have also gained millions.
Absolutely, right? But you have to be educated. It's the same as the .coms. You're putting your credit card online. You're giving information to a company. Do you know what that company is going to do with that information? Right? Wasn't there just something that somebody read through one of these exchanges? I can't remember which one of them that just failed recently. Maybe somebody in the audience knows the answer to this. But when you actually finally went in and you read their policies, you never had ownership of your crypto. You never had control of the money that you're putting in to buy these cryptos. That exchange crashed, and now all those people are out of that.
It was a custodial wallet.
Right, which is totally different than owning your own crypto and putting it into a hardware wallet. So let's talk about mental health in the space. We both had losses. This past year. You lost your father. I lost my grandmother. They were traumatic. I know that you were, what I always say to you is, like, look at the timing. How amazing the timing was that you were living in Portland. You divorced your wife.
San Francisco.
Oh, sorry, San Francisco. You moved back to New Jersey to be closer to your family for your own personal mental health.
Yeah, for my own, yes.
And then your father got sick. And you essentially took care of him for months while he went through chemo.
Almost a year. Yeah.
And the chemo basically killed him.
Yeah. So first thing I'll say is, because of NFTs and because of the success it did have in NFTs, and it saving my own life in terms of giving me a platform to grow, I later become successful enough to run my own business and be there for my dad and take the time off that I need without having to ask a boss or any of that stuff, all because of NFTs. And he got to experience it with me. One of the things I miss is he would send me like texts about NFT and blockchain stuff, like stuff that I would probably most of the time already know about. But I love that he was so interested and invested in like my world, and he was young. He was 70. He wasn't, and he was, he ran his own business, side business for 70 years and was a retired firefighter and, was a EMT instructor. The dude hustled his entire life. And was my rock, was my go-to for personal and business advice. And now that's not there, and that's one of the hardest things. But I've been able to work on my mental health so much over the last 2 years, 3 years, really. Beginning with therapy. Now I have two therapists. I have a traditional family therapist and a sex therapist, or a somatic sex educator. Those two, along with I also take Lexapro as an antidepressant. So all of that stuff, along with finding myself and this renewed sense of confidence, personal confidence, I walk through the world now and I feel great. I'm the biggest and the fattest I've ever been in my entire life, and yet I'm the most confident I have ever been in my entire life.
You're still in good shape. We do have to say,
Hey,
it's a good shape.
I have a good face. I'm not,
You have a good face, but I'm saying, also, I have friends that are your size also.
Yeah.
But it's kind of all blubbery. You're solid. And
I am solid. Yeah, I do have big bones and big muscles.
Right,
Yes.
right.
But
I totally agree with you that,
Yeah.
I think part of it, I think obviously the therapy and the Lexapro and everything like that. And
Yeah.
I've been through some challenges over these last couple of years. I think we've all been through challenges with the pandemic and everything, right?
I used to joke with the pandemic. People were like, "How are you doing?" And I'm like, "How am I doing? This is normal everyday life for me." Like the anxiety levels that you all are feeling, you're in my world now.
Right.
How am I doing? I feel good. I feel okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to my world. Right.
Everyone is on the same page
Right.
now. Exactly. I've heard that from other friends of mine also who also suffer from very, very significant depression. And they said that when the pandemic happened, they were actually relieved that everyone was kind of feeling the same amount of anxiety that they did, because they used to walk around and have complete anxiety and not understand why everyone else didn't feel that way. So
I thought I was broken for most of my life. I grew up Catholic, but not that I would pray. Energy and the universe, and we can impact our own lives through a positive action. And that begins with positive thought. It's the actions you take, and it all starts with putting yourself in a position to do that. When the pandemic hit, for the first time in my life, there were people that understood what crippling anxiety is like, right? And they get it now.
Yeah.
And they're like, "This is what you felt for 35 years." I'm like, "Yeah, motherfucker. That's what I felt for 35 years. I didn't know.
Right.
I thought I was broken for most of it." I'm like, "Why fix me? Somebody, how come I can't walk into a supermarket and enjoy the shopping experience? I got to sit there and start sweating because there's too many people around." Or or social situations, walking into a bar that I don't know where anybody's at, and now I walk in, I feel great now.
Right.
I walk in and I feel like I own places.
Right.
But
Right.
that's just my mindset has shifted.
Yes.
It's taken me a long time to get here.
Yes. I totally, I don't really reveal that much about myself, but I went through a very traumatic experience, and I've come out of it, much more empowered to feel good about myself.
Yeah.
The size that I'm at, being able to speak to anybody and talk to anybody, regardless of the fact, it's so funny. We talk about this all the time, that Myers-Briggs test, right?
Yes.
So I actually test introverted.
Me too.
Right. But we're very extroverted people when you get us into a social situation. Yeah. But that's the idea of the introvert is, it's not what everybody thinks. It's not that person that's sitting in the corner and can't talk to anybody. Right. It's that person that's actually, while they're talking to you, they do have social anxiety. They are, concerned about what's going on around them, but they're still able to interact with you professionally.
The way I've come to understand it for myself is, it's how and this is maybe oversimplification, but I think it sort of explains it. Introverts tend to, like, energy is sucked out of them the more that they're around people.
Right.
So I have to step away to regain energy. So like an NFT NYC, even though I live 5 miles away, I will have a hotel room with a suite so that I can go into that, and very close to the venues, so that when I'm feeling drained, I go to the suite by myself for an hour,
Right.
recharge, re-energize, and then come back. Sometimes it's taking a nap.
Yeah.
But these are the things I've learned about what being an introvert means for me. So yeah, we are extroverted in appearance.
That same kind of element passes on to depression as well, right? We are
Yeah.
actually happy and funny and laughing people,
Yeah.
but internally, we have that depression that's going on in our head.
Yeah, like I use visuals too sometimes. So most of my life I felt like I was in clouds, like that depression's like over my face. Now the clouds have lifted. They're still there.
Right.
I could see. And when it's dropping, I can mostly feel its effects and begin to take care of myself sooner. Although recently, because I've stepped away from uh, being out there in the world, because I've been feeling depressed and I didn't realize it until, and this is why I have therapists, right? They can reflect things back to you and make you see them. And so I realized, I just woke up one day after having a long conversation with my therapist, and I was like, oh fuck, you are depressed. Okay, now that I know that, what are the small things I can do? Because if I take too much on, it's not going to fix it. But if I make small incremental changes, for me, this is what works for me.
Yeah.
I'll begin to cycle out of the depression.
Right.
And so I've made those steps. And what I like to do is I like to treat myself to things that bring me joy for self-care. Like I like manicures and pedicures, right? They make me feel good.
Yes.
Massages
Yeah.
make me feel good. Going to the chiropractor makes me feel good, right? So doing little things like that will help kickstart, now that I've realized that I was depressed. But sometimes it takes a while for me to
Yeah.
recognize it.
Yeah, Richard says knowing is half the battle, and that's absolutely true. He says the other half is art, and that's very true as well. I think that I went through, I would say, up to my 50s
Yeah.
with not really able to identify, do I have anxiety? Am I depressed? But then when I really, really hit a wall, when I really wound up, there was something significantly wrong, I was able to then realize that I had a visceral reaction to depression. Everything was muted. Like it was, like you're saying, like in a cloud. Like for me, visually, everything, all the colors and everything just looked toned down. It looked almost like in a gradation. And that was like the deepest, darkest part of the depression that I ever had. And the anxiety also, I never really said, oh, I have anxiety, until I was around friends who were like, I have anxiety today because of this, this, and this. And I would say, well, I'm definitely concerned about those too. And I have this kind of like gnawing feeling in my chest. And until I actually said, oh, that's anxiety, like I never really understood what it was.
Yeah, like part of my therapeutic experience has been learning the difference between anxiety and depression. I would go through cycles, and it would be like high bouts of anxiety, high bouts of depression. But to me, it was all the same experience. I wasn't able, like for years, I didn't know the difference.
Interesting.
And you start parsing out like, oh, I'm anxious has a different feeling in my body
Right.
than depression. Right. Anxious for me is very heady. Depression is very body driven.
Mm.
But these are things, and then also learning the definition. Like typically, anxiety is related to focusing on something in the future, where depression is related to focusing on something in the past.
Oh, interesting.
And not being present.
Oh, that's so interesting. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Or at least that's how I've come to understand it for myself.
Do you think that the interaction on Twitter enhanced the anxiety and the depression, or do you think that it helped with the anxiety and depression?
No, I don't. It didn't affect it at all.
It doesn't affect it at all.
So
sometimes I see you tweeting at like 4 a.m. when I've just taken a break to the bathroom from sleeping.
Yeah.
And I see all your texts, and I'm like, oh wow, he's awake and
Yeah.
I'm awake too, but I'm not tweeting things out.
Yeah. I think I've learned to, like, I can manage Twitter, and the interactions I have with people don't affect my anxiety and depression at all. Social media broadly can.
Right.
That's why I'm not on Facebook, because I really don't care about what you and your kids are doing.
Right.
Yeah, and the people I do care about are close to me, and I already know.
Right.
You know, like we talk, or I see them, or
Right.
you know,
My
and
family is on a private chat. We're on a
yeah, we
private.
have exactly. I have several private chats. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's great, and it's fantastic, and so I've learned. I haven't. I had a Facebook account. I have a Facebook account, but I got off Facebook 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like fully, and I was off Twitter for a long time, mostly just sort of observing.
Mm-hmm.
But Twitter is such an important part of NFT culture.
Yes.
That
it's business. It's
business. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, it's personal too for me
yeah.
too. But it's like, I think also like having the therapy and the work that I've done over the last 3 years also helps me manage that, because I've learned about boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Something I didn't know that I needed to set.
Right.
For years I would just let people define what the boundaries are, because I think I have to be a good citizen and do what they want, right? Like these, I didn't know that I could set boundaries for myself.
Right.
And if people cross over them, and that's a violation, and maybe it's not their fault, but maybe I didn't set it right. So like, I'm learning all of these new ways to interact with the world. So Twitter, there are boundaries. I don't talk politics on Twitter anymore. I try not to get into, I try not to criticize, I try not to complain, and I try not to condemn. That really allows for great conversation. I'm not always good at it, but like having that mindset can save me a lot of headache. Also, I don't rely on my home feed. I have lists that I use, and my lists allow me to just to hit the people I know that I'm interested in talking to or listening to, and will guarantee that I will get to see if I have my list. Yeah, because the home feed algorithm is terrible.
I have to learn how to use lists. I haven't learned that yet.
Underrated feature, underused. I have private lists and public lists. The public lists are for people that I want to highlight and share and guide other people to follow. So I have public lists of glitch artists, of trash artists. Eventually I'm going to do photographers, collage artists. I have, right? So I'm putting these lists together, but then I have private lists, and one of them is like, I just call it daily, and these are creators that I want to touch on daily. And then I have weekly creators I make sure to check in weekly. I will eventually have a monthly, but I just haven't gotten there yet.
And then you also have private lists that are very specific to who you talk to.
That's the daily, weekly, monthly.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, and they're broken up into artists and I don't know. I don't think I call it professionals, but like they're like anybody who's an influencer that I want to just sort of, not that I need to interact with them, but if I want to see what they're up to, I'll do that. Sometimes I don't see Jimmy Eats tweets, so I want to make sure I see what he's talking about. And if it's something interesting, I'll tweet at him. He's an OG in the space, and I really enjoy his takes. So, and the Twitter algorithm doesn't always let me see him.
Right.
So, and then Whale Shark, right? Another dude I don't really respect, but I want to see what he's tweeting about. Ryder Rips is not
Pranksy, and people
Pranksy,
like that.
He's on that llist. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Pranksy used to be way more accessible back in the day.
He got too big.
Good on him. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Way to grow a brand.
Oh yeah,
absolutely good on him.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so as we wrap this up, nobody has asked a question yet. I have one final question. The T-shirt that you're wearing.
Fuck NFTs.
Yes. Why? Why fuck NFTs?
No, I wear it ironically.
Yes. You have a whole thing behind you. There's a whole
do. Where are they?
Right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was this dude on Twitter who tweeted out, and I don't know how I came across it. He tweeted out that he was selling these T-shirts, fuck NFTs, and forget he didn't like NFTs for whatever reason,
Okay.
something about consumerism, blah blah blah. But they were supporting a organization in Oakland that gave needles to drug addicts
Oh,
and like and lunches and things of that nature. And I was like, and he was selling them, so 50% would go to the organization, and I guess the other 50% was to cost.
oh, wow.
So I bought 32 of them.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a nice investment.
Yeah, well, because I thought it was hilarious that an NFT guy
Yeah.
like myself
Yeah.
would buy 32 fuck NFT shirts that I eventually want to give out or sell or something. I'll do maybe tokenize one day. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
see. So
That's awesome.
I wear it ironically because it's not really fuck NFTs.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. I'll have to wear one to next NFT NYC.
Oh, if my dad, I was going to be there, but I couldn't.
Right.
You know,
Your dad passed that week.
yeah, and so the next NFT NYC, I'm definitely wearing this.
Well, the good news is that since they're not going to NFT their own ticketing, and they have such a shit process in that little printed card, I'm just holding on to it next year, and I'm just planning to walk right in. So I'm not buying the ticket next year.
Yeah.
So there you go. Yeah. Okay, my friend. Look, we could talk. As we know, we could talk for hours and hours and hours.
Yes. This was great.
But this has been a great episode. I really appreciate the interview. This is really fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Stay tuned. We'll have other interviews coming up in the next couple of weeks.